Thank you for joining me again today. This is Mike Volkin with Freelancer School. Today I'm joined with a special guest, Robert Williams. Or is it? It's Rob, right? Sorry, I just asked you that. Is it Rob?
Yeah, Robert.
Robert. Okay, I'll call you Rob. He runs Folyo. Folyo is a freelance design RFP site and community that helps over 7,000 freelancers find jobs that empower them to live their best life. They find hundreds of RFPs each month that are remote, they're fulfilling, and they're high paying, and they provide education on how to bid on open jobs quickly and effectively. That's part of what we're going to talk about today. And he also hosts a podcast, one of my favorite freelance podcasts. As you guys know, there's no shortage of freelance podcasts out there, but Rob hosts one called Freelance, which is all about how to be effective at independent work. And that podcast is available pretty much everywhere, right? Google Play, iTunes.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I listen to it on iTunes. How often is that updated? Is that
we do it every week, Saturday
every week?
morning.
Is there a particular day?
Yeah, Saturday morning.
Okay,
yeah.
Saturday morning, excellent. I listen to that at the gym. It's one of my go-to podcasts. Awesome. First of all, as a successful freelancer, I have to ask you, how did you get started as a freelancer and get to be a success? You don't have to tell us all your tricks of how you got to be so successful, but how did you get started? What made you think, okay, I want to be a freelancer?
Yeah, so I basically got started wanting to be a freelancer in college, but I didn't really make the leap until I got fired from my full-time job. That's what kind of forced my hand, I think, that's when I kind of made the leap and decided, you know what, I'm going to really try to freelance full-time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you write a lot about freelancing, right? On your website, obviously on your podcast. What is your mission for all the content that you create?
My mission is to help independent designers, independent remote workers, basically make a living, make a great living,
mm-hmm.
And to make that easier for them.
Okay.
Yeah, that just goes back to me being a freelancer myself and seeing that it's, not always as easy as it should be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately freelancing is a part-time job, right? I'd like to see more full-time freelancers because I think it's the best job in the world if you can be full-time freelancer, but a lot of freelancers don't do it right. In one of your blogs on LinkedIn, I noticed that you discuss getting clients on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn obviously could be a very powerful platform for freelancers, and a lot of freelancers ignore that aspect of social media. So can you discuss some of your strategies with our freelance audience on marketing on LinkedIn?
Sure. I had a whole podcast on this with my friend Liston Witherell, who he's on the sales consultant side, so he's not as much of a creative designer or anything, but he basically walked me through kind of how he uses LinkedIn. And what he does is he was using video quite a bit because video is kind of a more effective, I think, at getting your attention usually, especially on something like LinkedIn where you're seeing things fly by. One way I use LinkedIn personally is to find kind of the RFPs that you mentioned for my site. So what I've found is LinkedIn suddenly has kind of blossomed into this place where companies want go to get the word out for certain things. Mm-hmm. And yes, they have the job site, the job portion of their whatever they're offering. I don't even know what they call it now. It's Pro Search Finder. That's some combination.
Yeah.
But I think it's better used as a connection tool, like you would use Twitter, like you would use, something more authentic as than just using it as a job search site. So what I do is I search. I use just the search window every morning, and I put in an RFP. And I'll usually do RFP plus a combination of website redesign or logo design or branding, and I'll sort that by content. So it's no longer no longer jobs or people's profiles that have RFP in it. It's now companies and people who are posting about RFPs that have kind of that keyword.
Yeah.
So it's just basically people saying, hey, I have this RFP out and I want responses, and they'll usually link to it. I've found LinkedIn has they let you embed now RFPs or PDFs into.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so often it'll just be like a direct link. You'll be able to download it right off the site, off that post.
Yeah. And on Folyo, are your jobs, the RFPs that are they usually a bigger size than what you would normally see on Upwork?
Yeah, definitely. So I think you mentioned your great intro, by the way, and thank you for listening to the podcast. That's awesome. You mentioned like all the jobs we try to feature on the site are, remote, fulfilling, and high paying. And so by high paying, usually we're looking at, if it's like a website redesign, just to give you a frame of reference, it'll usually be like a floor of like $5,000, or if it's a logo redesign, maybe that's $2,000, or just basically trying. And we surveyed kind of our customers. We saw kind of what the average price is for these different things. And that's kind of how we developed like these floors to really help us gauge like what a high paying job really looks like in the market in 2019, like this, happening right now, not in 2007 or whatever. But yeah, Upwork, I would say, is probably quite a bit lower than those like floors. So
yeah, I would say so. I don't know too many people on Upwork that would pay $2,000 for a logo designer. Usually you see, I mean, I don't have my pulse on design. I'm a marketing guy, but usually you see stuff around, under 2,000, right? At least not 200 on some of these. And that's what Fiverr is for, those $5 gigs, right? How does someone, a freelancer listening to this audience, how do they separate themselves from the sea of other freelancers? Do you have any quick actionable tips for them?
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the things that I like to talk about a lot and kind of write about on my blog is positioning. As a freelancer, I think positioning is important, and there's a couple good books on it that I recommend. I didn't write them, but I'll give a shout out anyway.
Yeah, you did. That's okay. You can do that. What are the books?
Philip Morgan, he wrote the positioning manual.
Yes.
There's also a new one out by April Dunford, who I just interviewed on my podcast about it. It's called Obviously Awesome. So there's a couple positioning books, but I think, I think just thinking about like the context behind the work that you do, that alone, I think, is enough to kind of differentiate you quite a bit. Most, at least in the design market, most people are focused on their portfolio, and what that usually means is like a screenshot of my work. Like, here's the website that I designed, as opposed to here's the problem I solved, and here's the solution versus the problem. And so thinking about, I think that plus the positioning, like focusing on that problem that's going to be painful to solve, that's painful for the clients and expensive to solve, and then thinking about your positioning in terms of like how can you specialize and try to be like the world's most leading person on that particular problem. I think that is a good way to kind of differentiate yourself. And somebody who does that awesome, Val Geisler, valgeisler.com, I think is her. If you want like a great case study on positioning, that's, I think, a great website.
That's good. And you know what else? The benefit of branding yourself is you don't have to compete for the lowest price. The better you brand yourself, the less you have to compete. At Freelancer Masterclass, we have a 10-step process, right, for becoming a great freelancer. And we put branding as the second module. And a lot of freelancers ask us, well, why is this? I don't even know how to get clients yet. Like, why am I worried about my branding of myself? And I tell them, you got to look within yourself first before you understand how to bring in clients. You don't do it backwards, or you're going to be falling in that trap that all the other freelancers fall into. So
I think that's a smart approach, and often it gets skipped over, like you said, because you kind of think that you have to start with like the market or whatever, but it does really start with you and like what you're passionate about. And people love to throw around the meme of like, don't follow your passion anymore, like you forget your passion or whatever. But I think it still does. There's like one way or the other. There's a spectrum, right? And that advice, I think, might be going too far now, where people are just totally ignoring what they care about or what they want to do and what they want to get out of it. So I think starting from there is a smart thing.
Absolutely. I think we're in agreement in that. So in your career, was there a breakthrough in your business that stood out as a point in time that kind of helped establish your creativity? I mean, you've got a pretty good name out there. You've casted a lot of nets. You've interviewed a lot of important people. can you give our freelancer audience, they're all trying to establish themselves as credible and cast a wide net. So was there a point in time you realized, hey, you know what, I'm doing this right, or maybe a lucky break you got at some point? What happened?
A lucky break. I think one of the real turning points in my business has been taking a course on it was I think billed as like a product building course, but what it really kind of taught me was how to kind of look at a market and pull from that like the things that are going to sell. And it's a course by Amy Hoy, but there's other courses. There's your freelance course. There's tons of courses out there, but what really was the turning point for me was like looking at pains that people are experiencing and that they're already paying for. And that's where I kind of that's where to focus, and that's where to kind of just try to help in that situation. And so once I did that,
understanding the person you're referring to, putting them in your shoes, that type of thing, understanding their pain points, and coming at it from that perspective, instead of just trying to like shout out and be a billboard, and constantly trying to sell yourself. I guess that would be a good way to approach it. So interesting.
It made things a lot easier because it wasn't like Justin Jackson talks about this, like trying to create a market or trying to pull your market to your solution. Instead, just kind of giving them what they want and meeting them kind of where they are.
That's true. And listening to them. I can't tell you how many times when I hire freelancers on Upwork, I just get the same copy and paste proposal. It's like, did you even read anything but the title in my job description? It says specifically that I don't want this, I don't want that. And they send the same proposal over and over again. If you took 10 seconds to look at the proposal and send me something custom, at least in the first sentence, then you're going to get my attention. I guess it kind of goes that way with everything, more than just Upwork, but LinkedIn as well. And I like that LinkedIn tip you gave with the RFP. That's interesting. And you have to do that manually. Going back to that, you have to do that manually every single day. There's no RSS feed or alert that can give you something like that.
Well, there's my site, which I post all of the RFPs too.
Yeah.
And there's a free plan there as well, so you can get like a percentage of them and just kind of even land a gig or two before you pay anything. So that there's that. But on the site as well, I have like some tips on like writing emails specifically to like a job or an RFP situation. And I appreciate you saying that, because I think the whole template thing, I think it paralyzes you almost, because you almost rely on it too much, and you think you forget to kind of think for yourself and to just approach it like from a human perspective, like you're saying, like just kind of reply like
it's a lazy way out. It's a lazy way. I'm not saying don't have a couple bullet points you want to say, but copying and paste a standard boilerplate proposal that's the same from job to job ain't going to get you very far. It's the lazy man's ways out. Tell me a little bit more about Folyo, traction you're getting, where else our audience can find you online, all that stuff. So my audience can follow your audience, can follow you.
So you already mentioned the podcast, got Freelance podcast. I've interviewed some really cool people people at Basecamp, Disney World, CEO. A bunch of cool sites, YNAB, and they basically kind of share how they're building their business and how they approach independent work, remote work, which is, I think, two very important things to master as a freelancer. So there's the podcast, and then you mentioned the site folyo.me, which is kind of where I and my team kind of come find these RFPs and these independent contract jobs for creatives and designers, and we hand screen each one and we post them on the site. And so we're trying to be like a lot different from any other RFP site in a couple ways. Particularly, if you go to an RFP site, it kind of sucks because it's going to be 100-page PDFs from these government entities that robots spit out. It appears, and so there's no filtering process. So with this site, like this is what my ideal version of a RFP site would look like. Like the RFPs basically come to you, to your inbox. We're hand screening them to make sure that they're like written by humans, and we get additional information from these people that are wanting these proposals. It's mostly like website redesign stuff.
Yeah.
So that's we have a free newsletter on there that you can sign up for and get started. So that's probably the best place to go, I think.
Cool.
And I appreciate you asking me that, man.
Yeah, no problem. Are you thinking about expanding out to other industries? Marketing, for example, would be great.
Yeah, I do want to.
I'm biased, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think creative in general, like writing and marketing stuff, is on the horizon for us, because it is kind of where I've grown to really enjoy that work as well, and understand that work. And so the more I feel like independent businesses that we can help make a better living for themselves and work from home, and because I really love that part of like my business, like spending like in the other room, my baby's asleep taking a nap, and I can go hang out with her, and that's like what I think, to cut through all the marketing or whatever. Like that's, I think, more of the reason why I'm able to kind of keep doing this every day and kind of focus on it, because I do think it's like an awesome time to be working. So
yeah.
That's
one of the reasons why I like to stay home. I got a 9-week-old daughter in the other room that's also napping, and I want to be with her. So that's great, man. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to more content that you put out. Remember, he's got a free newsletter on his website. He's got folyo.com, right? Folyo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're very active on LinkedIn, so follow him on LinkedIn. Anywhere else we can follow you? Social media? What else are you active on? Facebook, Twitter?
Yeah, there's Facebook and Twitter. Also Folyo. On Twitter, it's Yo Folyo.
Yo Folyo. Oh, somebody took Folyo?
I guess.
Come on. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Rob, and hope to have you on again as a future guest.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
You too.